Hi, I'm Jonathan Narby, and this is Gina Waldman. She's with Jimena. Website is www.jimena.org. And Jimena is an organization which is dedicated to the Jews indigenous to the Middle East and North Africa. Now, Regina actually has, I guess, a story to tell and a story that's maybe not well understood or not even well known by your average Canadian or even much of the world in regard to the refugees of the Middle East. When we talk of refugees in that part of the world, typically the discussion is about the Palestinian refugees. But what is not well known or well understood is that in fact there were quite a few refugees, Jewish refugees of Arab lands. So maybe I'll let Regina get into telling the story. What is the history there?
We have a very little known history. That's the reason why they call us the forgotten refugees. And basically, we just want to be recognized and we want our story to be told. We want people to know that when the Arab-Israeli conflict took place, that it made not just one group of refugees, but two, the Palestinians, and their issue obviously needs to be addressed. And there were as many Jewish refugees from the Arab countries that were also made refugees, because the Arab leaders, the same Arab leaders who decided not to accept the two-state solution mandated by the United Nations, which would have created the Palestinian state and the state of Israel. That resolution was accepted in 1948 by Israel. And the country of Israel was formed then in 1948. But the Arab leaders, not just the Palestinians, the Arab leaders decided that they didn't want to do that. And as a result, they waged war against Israel, which created a huge number of refugees. We know that every time there is a war, of course, there are hundreds and thousands of refugees that result from that. And then on the other side, the same Arab leaders waged a different kind of war to their own Jewish population. There were Jewish populations that were living throughout North Africa, the Gulf region, and the Middle East, starting from Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt. And this war was waged in a different way in that the mob took to the streets, they burnt our homes, they burnt our businesses, and eventually, at the end, they expelled us and confiscated our properties and our assets. So we call this the double tragedy, the Palestinian and the Jewish refugees. But as you mentioned, Jimena was formed to show that the narrative is missing the Jewish part.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just missing since 1948. Really, I think there's a lacking of awareness of that. In fact, Jews inhabited all regions of the Middle East before 1948. The story doesn't begin in 1948.
Absolutely, and also I should add that not just our story doesn't begin, but the anti-Semitism in the Arab countries also has been in existence and very much going on for hundreds of years. In fact, the Jews of Arab countries, we are considered and actually treated as dhimmis. Dhimmis, D-H-I-M-M-I, is a term that was given to actually not just Jews but some also Christian communities as well. We had been inhabiting the region for over 2,500 years. In Iraq, we talk about during the Babylonian time that we were brought in as slaves. And that was well before the Arab conquest of the 7th century. And yet, over the centuries, we have been treated as inferiors to the Muslims. And the level of discrimination was based on, depending from the ruler. For example, maybe Tunisia and Morocco may have been a little bit more lenient, but certainly Egypt and Syria and Iran and so forth were considered, in Libya certainly, we were considered non-citizens. We were never given a nationality. We were not allowed to vote. We were not allowed to be part of any government job. And our testimony is not taken in court. We cannot testify in court. So there were a lot of discriminatory laws like that.
Mm-hmm. And this, of course, isn't just something that went back to a few years or a few decades before 1948. This had been, I guess, in communities for centuries, really, we're talking. And maybe you could talk a little bit about your own family's story and your own personal experience